You're with Craig Zonka on ABC Radio Brisbane.
And continuing the sporting theme, because this Monday it is pre-season training day, starts for the Brisbane Lions men's team. Head coach Chris Fagan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Craig.
How's the wet weather going to impact day one?
Well, we trained this morning, so it's looking okay at the moment. It might rain a little bit later. It's interesting. Last year, I think the entire pre-season we didn't have one wet training session. So
really?
Yeah.
Gosh, what a turnaround, hey?
Apparently, according to the locals, it usually does rain a bit at training in the summer.
Well, maybe this is a good omen. You didn't have a wet day during the pre-season. You've got one this time round, and let's hope that could then mean also a turnaround in fortunes on the field next season. Yeah,
well, we think we made lots of progress last year with a really young group, and we're looking forward to it with those guys a year older and some good recruits in, and the draft approaching that we can begin that climb up the ladder.
How tough are you on those players day one?
Look, they come back. It's amazing how good they come back in the physical condition that they're in.
So they haven't had too many hamburgers?
No, we set the standard long before they leave, so they've got to come back with their skin folds at a certain level and be able to run a specific time in a 3K time trial. So there's no hiding when they turn up, and they know that. And, by and large, the players turn up in great condition.
I was going to ask, do you need to name and shame any players this morning?
No, actually our 1 to 4 year players have been back for a couple of weeks, and they were all in great shape, so I expect the older boys to be the same today.
Yeah, the pressure's on them, that's for sure, when the senior men come back to the squad. So how does it work for pre-season? What's your focus then over the next month or so as you head into Christmas?
Yeah, well, we built a game plan last year that we want to continue to grow and develop throughout the pre-season, so that will be a focus. We've got a trademark that the playing group have developed that they want to live by, and again, that's one of those things we want to continue to fine-tune. So they're the platforms of our team, and pretty much the pre-season is to continue to grow and build those where we started last year. Yeah,
so it's about the physical side of the game or the mental side of the game now?
Oh, it's both, really. We've got a young group who need to build their confidence and belief, so we'll keep working on that. And we've got a game plan that we think that can deliver success. We showed great signs of being able to implement that last year, but there's a long way to go, particularly in terms of our team defence and our contested ball. So we'll be focusing pretty heavily on that over the pre-season.
And how do you go about that as head coach, knowing that last year was a time to rebuild the team? You had a young squad, you wanted to get them experience on the park and then really fire 2018. But when you lose so many games, it's a tough mental battle that you go through as a player.
Although if you talk to our players, they felt like last year was a pretty sizable success. We won more games than we did the year before. I think in 2016 we may well have lost a dozen games by over 10 goals. Last year it was just 5, so we became very, very competitive, and I think that was well recognised around AFL circles. Most people that know a bit about AFL will tell you that they think Brisbane are on the rise. So we approached this pre-season with a lot of confidence. At the end of last year, the players didn't want the season to finish. Our second half of the year, I think we won 4 of our last 10 games, so we really started to play some good footy. So they approached this pre-season with optimism. We know it's not going to be easy. You don't suddenly go from being young to being old and experienced. It takes a few years, so we're 1 year into that process. But we think we can improve again.
Chris Fagan is with you. He's the head coach of the Brisbane Lions. Obviously not getting on the park at the Gabba because the Ashes is on this week, and I guess that presents the challenge for the team as well, because you train across, 5 different venues, something like that?
Yeah, we do. In a sense that keeps you fresh, but in another way that's a bit of a pain in the backside. Most of the other AFL clubs get to train on their own training ground on a regular basis, and if they go somewhere else it's because they choose to. We don't really have a choice. We're at Yeronga at the moment, courtesy of AFL Queensland, which is fantastic. We go to Coorparoo after Christmas. We don't get back onto the Gabba usually until the season starts. So our poor old property manager, he's just packing his van and driving all around the countryside. And we also train a few other venues on not as a regular basis, but it does make it challenging.
Well, I remember a couple of weeks ago chatting to one of the Lions executive about this push for a new home at Springfield, even wanting to make it an election issue. Have you seen anything from the major parties?
No, there's been no public announcement of their support, which is something that we'd very much look forward to. That $15 million to get that project up and off the ground would be invaluable to us, not just for the men's team but for the women's team. We saw the fiasco last year where they were good enough to finish on top and make the grand final, and you'd had to play the grand final at Metricon Stadium down the Gold Coast. So the sooner they can get a place that they can call home, and there's a stadium in Brisbane that you can play AFL football at, which doesn't rely on the availability of the Gabba, would be sensational for us.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of days left of this election campaign. Tim Nichols, Anastasia Palaszczuk, if they're listening this morning, what's your message to them, Chris Fagan?
Oh, I'd like them to come out and publicly announce their support for that project, and that the $15 million is on the way. Make a lot of people happy.
Look, the other thing you mentioned was that the draft, which is on Friday night. You'll have first pick. So who's at the top of your list?
No, we've got a couple of players we're still debating over. It's a nice problem to have.
I was going to say, is it tough? Because you get to choose whoever you want. Is it tough narrowing down exactly that number one pick?
It is a little bit, and there's a bit of pressure that comes with having the number one pick. The two players that we're thinking of are two very different players, so it's not as if they're alike. We've just got to decide which one we really want to go for.
I was going to say, do you want to reveal who?
Oh, no, I won't do that here publicly because I'll be stealing the thunder of our recruiters and list management team. It's their time of the year, so we'll let them make that call.
Yeah, but obviously a big week for the Brisbane Lions. Training starts today. The draft, because it'll be 3 picks. What is it, number 1?
Yeah, 1, 15 and 18, and then we've got pick 40, 44, and another one at 52. So we've got 6 selections to make. The first one's reasonably predictable. After that, you've got to think on your feet during the draft.
Really good to have it in studio this morning, Chris, and I hope we get to chat plenty more times before the season rolls round. Early in 2018, I find it even scary mentioning 2018 and another season of AFL football, because it means it's closer than what I really need it to be.
Coming up quickly. No, it's a pleasure to be here, Craig, and to both our political parties. Hopefully they can jump on board with that project.
Thanks for joining me this morning. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.